Guys, we're back. We're back with another prefabbed, quote unquote live video. Can't do it live because I'm going to PT. I got PT at 8. This is Friday morning. PT at 8. A conference call at 9. Coaching at 9:30. And I'm gonna try to fit all that in without being late anywhere. So obviously, the fact that I wake up at the last possible minute doesn't bode well for getting in for my typical Friday morning. But I'll be able to upload this before the day starts, or as usual after the 6 a.m. has already done their workout for the day. Okay, so news cycle's been going well so far, I think. I think we've gotten out of it exactly what we expected to get out of it in just 2 weeks, right? I'd love to see the idea even of using thrusters as a heavy weight at a low volume and just seeing what you're capable of. Like, think of all of the things that have had to been strengthened since the last time we did a heavy thruster, right? Your hip hinging, basically your explosion, your power has had to increase, and so many people hit PRs either because they didn't even know or they didn't have a previous max, or because since the last time we did heavy thrusters, they've just gotten that much stronger. So really like to see that. Overhead squats are a thing. We can't take our eye off of overhead squats. If for no other reason than because of the mobility, I'll use the word gains, but also awareness. I think that overhead squats, kind of like pistols, which we also had this week, are they wake you up a little bit to, hey, I have some glaring mobility issues that I need to work on, which could be a goal for you this year. But for the most part, I think we're getting through those with minimal heart attacks for coaching for us coaches. We joke, definitely sort of tongue-in-cheek. We joke about overhead squats seeming rather dangerous, especially because you're putting an entire barbell, usually 100 pounds or more load over your head, and then the sort of questionable mobility at the bottom. Sometimes you go down into an overhead squat and you're not sure what's going to happen, right? Am I going to get up? I think that they are relatively easy to bail on, but until you have done that, maybe it's not. Maybe it's we've all at least been party to someone who bails in a very awkward way, not because they just didn't know, like they weren't taught, or it wasn't an experience that they had ever had before, and so they basically panic. And we've seen that not a lot. I've seen it a couple of times with back squats. Not so much with overhead squats, but definitely some less than comfortable re-racking back to your neck, which we had to talk about, at least in my classes, quite a bit last night. So that's where we are with this cycle so far. We're only 2 weeks in, but it is sort of not a shortened cycle, but it is an abbreviated format, because week 6 will be when the open starts. But hopefully those of you who have signed up are getting a little bit excited about that. Okay, before we talk about today's topic, which for me is just going to be, I want to touch on goals a little bit, what mine are, what maybe yours are. Maybe if you don't have any, if you're thinking about it, maybe I'll give you some ideas about what to look for or what to think about. Let's talk about the endurance WOD first. So 2 weeks in a row, well, okay, let's go back 3 weeks. We did 2 weeks in a row of throwing a little bit of bodybuilding interference in. We did some bicep curls. I don't know how well that was liked. I'm sure that the format of the workouts detracted from whether or not you liked or did not like bicep curls in the middle of a WOD. But I came back from vacation and we immediately did a 40-minute AMRAP. And then last week we did a 30-minute AMRAP. So just making sure we're hitting that. I want it to be a long 25 minutes or more type of workout that gets you a nice sweat in. And on both occasions we had some rowing to do, or some biking. We're going to do one this weekend that does not have rowing or biking in it, miraculously, but it also doesn't have running in it. So how are we going to get endurance out of that? Well, we always say, or I always say, it's usually this summer where we do this, but we're going to do it now. I say that one form of endurance that we like to use Saturdays for sometimes is grunt work. And this will be that week. All right, so here's what the workout is. We're going to move the boxes again. We're going to use the floor again. Something that I said we weren't going to do a ton more of, but listen and hear me out. 7 rounds. A farmer carry of 50 meters indoors. So up and back, and then down. Right? That's Hubert, by the way. Huey won't let me record a video in peace. Okay, sorry. 50 meters of farmer carry. And then 10 meters of dumbbell lunges. And you can... I'm not going to specify how those lunges go. It's you're holding a dumbbell in each hand. You can front rack them, you can suitcase carry them, but you are not letting go of them, basically. So you're going to lunge just 10 meters, though. Weighted carries. And I feel like this is the day because today I'm talking on Thursday. We had kettlebell swings, and I specifically wrote the note, don't go for heavy on this one. This weekend, however, it's endurance WOD. We want it to go long. This is the weekend to challenge yourself with the weight. So you're going to do your 50 meters of farmer carry. You're going to come back, or you're going to end on one of the sides. It's always going to be a different side. And then you're going to do 10 meters back of your 10 meters back of lunges. And then when you get to the other side, what you're going to do is 10 dumbbell burpees. So this WOD was inspired by the fact that I did dumbbell burpees this week, and I was like, how do we get those involved in the programming a little bit more? Dumbbell burpees are an interestingly worded or phrased movement. It's a burpee where your hands are on some dumbbells, and then the dumbbell part is that you basically hop up and do a deadlift with the dumbbells. So it kind of buries the lead there. It's mostly a burpee with deadlifts. It's a deadlift burpee with dumbbells. There's no jumping involved. But you can see how 7 rounds of that might be a bit tedious. Now, here's the thing. With a 40-minute AMRAP, a 30-minute AMRAP, this is going to fall, and this is a 7-rounder, so it's not an AMRAP. This is a 4-time. This falls under the category for our EWODs of, like, trying to... I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you don't challenge yourself, this one won't take 25 minutes. And I'm basing my hopeful time on this from the fact that this is actually a WOD that I did 3 years ago. 3 years ago. I think it was 3 or 4. I have to check my notebook again. In any case, my time back then was around 20 minutes. So I'm not writing a WOD that I specifically think would take everyone 25 minutes, but I do think it will take most people 25 minutes. And that's good enough for me for an EWOD, given that we just came off of 40 minutes and a 30 minutes, and that I'm trying to do this one without using a machine and without going outside to run. So I'm trying to thread a couple of needles here. All right, so that's Saturday. What else is Saturday? Chase and Fiona and Robbie are competing on Saturday, and God bless them. I mean, it sounds like the snowstorm's going to miss them, which is awesome because I really want them to get this experience. I just really wish I was going, and I feel bad that I'm not. I've just had so much coverage for people coming in to coach for me recently that I just felt like I couldn't ask for coverage again. And everything, of course, everything good in our lives takes place on Saturdays. So of course it does. But in this particular case, if it was a competition at like Westchester, I would coach or have one person coach for me at maybe 9, and then I'd rush down there. I don't want to miss it, but this one's like 2.5 hours away. And it just kills me that I'm going to miss it. But if you're coming to the gym on Saturday morning, my current goal is to stream it, because that event supposedly will be streamed on Facebook. And if it's streamed on Facebook, and that means it can be streamed by me at the gym and played on the TV, and we can just kind of like, it actually, when you think about the WOD, there's going to be time to watch the TV while you're walking with your dumbbells and doing your grunt work. So maybe that'll work out. I hope it does. Goals. I don't need to spend a ton of time on this. I don't expect that everybody has CrossFit goals. But if you do, put it this way. There's really only one way to kind of speak these things into existence, and that is to do that, to tell people, to write them down, to shout them out. If you have CrossFit goals and you're not telling anyone about it, I believe that's probably a pretty common thing. Like, you do have them, but you don't want to tell anybody about them because then they're real, and then you're going to be held accountable to them, at least in some small part by your coaches. But if you're someone who doesn't mind sharing and kind of wants that accountability, then speak it into existence, even if they don't come true, right? We want to do our best to help that happen. And to be quite frank with you guys, we don't now, and we don't plan to ever program months in advance. We program 6 weeks in advance, and for a week of WODs, we typically we program them on a week by week basis, and that the reason we do that is because of agility. We like to see, like, okay, they really liked that handstand walking thing we were doing. Let's try to throw that a little bit more in there. And we can't do that if everything's already set in stone for 6 weeks. And it also, the reason I'm bringing that up now is to say, if you make your goals known, we can actually program around that. Now, I don't mean like, Matt Arden's got a 1,000 pound club goal that we're going to just tailor something specifically for him. But what we do is we look for trends. If everybody is trying to get pull-ups this year, or a good chunk of people, then we can bias our programming a little bit towards them, or at least start to provide a little bit more of that type of instruction on maybe Tuesdays, or even start to throw out some extra work for you guys to do at All Access. We can't program to something we don't know about. And if you have a goal that involves some stuff that we don't typically do, on an every week basis, then it's going to take a little bit of extra commitment for you to come in on your own to figure that stuff out, which is what we're trying to avoid. Although it is a pretty good advertisement for All Access. So what do you want to do? Like, step one to this goal process is write it down. Write it down, or tell someone, or put it up on the whiteboard at the box. That would be ideal. And then after that, we can start to talk about, I first and foremost, like, this isn't any of our workplace, right? It's not nobody here has a boss. Coaches are not your boss, right? And we're not we are hopefully just more cheerleader than anything else. And so where I'm going with that is just to say, at work, you have to make these SMART goals, right? They have to be specific, measurable, actionable, relevant. You have to have a time-specific piece to it and say, I'm going to complete this by a certain time. If you guys have, like, pie-in-the-sky goals that aren't those things, that aren't SMART, quote-unquote, I don't care. Like, tell us what it is, and then we'll help to refine from there. If it can be refined, and if it can't, at least then we still know. Like, telling us a nutso goal is still better than not telling us that goal, even if it is impossible. And honestly, if you have goals that are beyond your reach right now, then that's helpful for us to know too, so that we can start to make things a little bit more bite-sized and manageable for you. So where am I going? Specificity is what we're looking for more than anything else, but we can work on that if your goals aren't specific yet. So in other words, don't just say, I want to get better at CrossFit in 2022, or I want to work on gymnastics more. How about we say something more specific than that? I'm going to do rig work outside of class once a week. Okay, and that rig work can be anything. It can be pull-ups, it could be toes to bar, it could be progressions of both, but you've got that once a week thing in there. And it's not as broad as just getting better at gymnastics or working on it. I definitely, while I'm saying I want to help to refine goals, work on is a phrase that we want to hear less of. Work on how, right? Work on it how and for how long and to achieve what. So while I'm saying we'll just start with baseline anything goals, obviously for CrossFit where we measure everything and we have Beyond the Whiteboard, and Beyond the Whiteboard measures more things than you'd even want to measure for the most part, the best goals for CrossFit are going to be measurable. And not only that, they're going to be like, process is king over outcome. Like, don't just tell me, here's a good example. Let's say you wanted to RX Fran, right? I want to RX Fran this year. We're going to do Fran 3 more times, right? So if you tell me you're going to RX Fran this year, then I think what I'd rather hear is I'm going to work on thrusters X amount of times per week until I RX Fran, or I am going to work on pull-ups X amount of times per month or week until I RX Fran. And that way, it's already time boxed because you have Fran happening 3 more times, and so you have about 36 or so more weeks before you have to even worry about whether or not you're achieving your goals. 36 weeks until the end. But even then, guys, you could do Fran in all access. You could do it off hours. It would be totally fine. So, just for the most part, where if you set a goal that is not currently refined, it's just sort of an idea, where we would likely want to take it as a coach or somebody helping you to refine that goal is to make it something that is in some way measurable, right? So the outcome would be completing Fran RX. The measurable piece would be how much work you did on pull-ups and how often. Same thing with thrusters. RX is just doing it. RX is just the outcome and not the part of the process that it took you to end up there. I think another thing, this is, since it's nighttime, it's not coffee. I had this thing where Laura did not discover this, but she started to use the crystal light, like little squeeze things into your water, completely 0 calorie, and they're like a mind blower. Like, good God, they're amazing. We're not gonna buy Gatorade Zero anymore. We're just gonna buy Crystal Light. It's so good, so good. I keep some at the gym. It's just amazing. I think at some point I need to just have regular unflavored water, but not yet. What else about goals? I think I mentioned, we want to know about them, but I think you should talk to other people about them too. You know what I mean? Tell your friends at the box that you're trying to do this. Because here's one of the reasons that I'm saying that is because, as I mentioned earlier, there are people where it's a totally normal thing they do have goals, but they don't want to bring them to light. Because then it becomes real. It's like writing it down and then, all right, well, now I have to do it. And I don't know if I'm ready for that commitment. And I would ask, is that really a good goal for you then if you're afraid to do it? But it's more of a shy thing. It's more of I don't want to burden anybody with my goals. This is personal to me. I'm just saying, if you don't feel comfortable telling me, tell your buddy at the box, because maybe they have the same goal. And we can all agree on this. It's easier to do or achieve these types of things. It's like a group project. When you have help or when you have someone specifically encouraging you. I know that there was a little bit of that going on last year with Becca's goal stuff and her pull-ups, and then other people jumped on board because she spoke it into existence. She wrote a Facebook post about it, and then other people joined in and said, yeah, I want to do that too. That's a great idea. Even if we didn't all achieve it. So that brings me to the next piece is even if you decide, I'm not going to write this on the whiteboard. It's going to be something that I'm working on sort of on my own or doing all access or with a friend. Still, don't be afraid to ask a coach for help. We've been there. We've definitely been there. We've had all the goals. We haven't even achieved all of them, but for the most part, we've had the goals that you have too. And we've had, man, this coaching staff now has like 50 years of experience with this stuff. So, like, we have a lot of stuff that we can give you, and I personally wouldn't make it a big thing. Like, I won't go and broadcast your goals to everybody else. It could be a private conversation. It can be something that we just work on sort of on the side. You know, every once in a while, someone will say, hey, you guys are doing pistols today. Like, is it okay if I just work on this other thing? Uh-oh. Over here, off to the side. Isn't it clear that I was using my laptop? Like, what the... So just keep that in mind. Like, we can all help. Lastly, this is something I think I'm just kind of always beating the drum of. It's like, I say this the most with double unders. Let's take baby steps. I mentioned, like, it's fine. Come to us with a grander goal. Don't make it, I want to go to the CrossFit Games. Well, let us know if that's something you actually want to do, sure. But I guess where I'm going with that is, like, if you don't currently have pull-ups, don't tell me you want to do ring muscle-ups. Or, no, I'm sorry, let me rephrase. You can tell me you want to do ring muscle-ups, but what I will respond with is, okay, let's get you some strict pull-ups. And that might take a while. But that's what I mean by baby steps. So let's know the outcome you're looking for. But then step 1 is going to be, I'm going to write a checklist of goals for you 2022. 1 strict pull-up. You're going to check that off when you get it. Next goal, 3 strict pull-ups. Check that off when you get it. Next goal, 5 strict pull-ups. And I mean unbroken with this stuff. That might take a while. Eventually you get it, we check it off. And then we start to say things like, well, can you do the same thing strict? I'm sorry, strict, can you do the same thing chest to bar? And then we work on the same sort of baby steps. And we keep, you know, that's how goals really work, right? It's chipping away at things. And so I like that about it. So keep that in mind. Let's keep the goals baby steps. Even if you have something grander, let's know about, or at least acknowledge, the intermediate steps that we're going to need to hit before we get to the grand goal. I don't know. What else can we say about goals? You know what? I know what I want to say. Let's celebrate too. And I mean, like, we want to ring that bell about, you know, the simplest of things. We went up by, some of you guys hit PRs by like 2 pounds, and we ring that bell and we celebrate. Let's do the same thing with the baby steps. Like, I want to know, hey, I just got, yeah, it's my ultimate goal is ring muscle ups, but I just did 5 strict pull-ups and I've never done that before. I applaud that. That's the stuff, right? I don't even remember all the steps that I've taken over the years, because they just all eventually, you know, become this big amalgamation of hard work. We can just file it under the umbrella of hard work. Like, I don't know how I ended up with ring muscle ups. I'll tell you this much though. I did not get them, I think it was 4 or 5 years into my CrossFit career before I got them. And I've posted on Instagram before my first ring muscle up, and it was illegal, but also super ugly. So just keep that in mind. So those are the opinions that I have about goals. Now, I mentioned on my podcast that I do with Becca that I don't have any fitness related goals, because my goals this year are more coaching. But more to the point, I didn't have a fitness related goal last year either, because for me, I am now at like this point where it's actually, my goal is more not having goals, because I've been in my history with this stuff, like obsessive at times and like weirdly obsessive about it. Maybe the advice here is not to become weirdly obsessive about this stuff. My advice is just that maybe it's maybe you're like me, and having a goal is you are one of those people who are serial goal havers, and for you, that's not a healthy thing. So there's like, I guess where I'm playing the extremes here and just saying it is also a thing where like goals are not always, at least CrossFit goals. Everybody should have goals, but like we don't all need to have CrossFit goals. For me, I don't physically, at least from like a me doing movements or adding new load to a bar, but I do have CrossFit goals for coaching. And so the problem with my CrossFit coaching goals is that one of them is to do a ring muscle up clinic this year. That's sort of not, I don't want to say invite only, but one where like it will be people who are like pretty close, right? Who have the certain prerequisites, where it would be a valuable use of their time, because it would be like a several hours long type of thing, and that'll happen this year. So but my other coaching goals are not fair to say are goals because they're dependent on you. And one of them is, I was thinking about this, I want to have a percentage of people who give us, like, who tell us about their goals, hit them. And I say a percentage and not 100%, only because I also want to encourage people to have goals that they know they can't hit this year, right? Like long-term goals. But depending on who sort of decides to speak them out into existence, or how, not who, but how many, I want to take it personally. I want us even as a coaching staff and as a to get you there, right? And to always remember, like, that's going to be a bigger thing. We cannot program for everybody's goals, and I don't even mean we're going to program for anyone's goals. But let's say next cycle we are doing deadlifts. I will definitely encourage other coaches and myself to remember who it was that had the deadlift goals, and make sure that we're keeping keeping our eyes on you. It's that kind of thing. And checking in maybe more so than programming, since we can't tailor it to everyone. I would love to just check in a little bit more. I mean, I can tell you for sure, Becca could tell you, I didn't check in with her about pull-ups at all last year. It just wasn't on my mind. But I would like to do a better job of that. And so that's and I think that's a perfectly normal, or I think maybe even a more valuable goal for me to have than anything personally from like a working out standpoint. So my working out goals is to not have goals, and my coaching goals are to help other people meet their goals very specifically, and then to also maybe do a couple of, maybe just the one we'll start with, the ring muscle up clinic, but also if that goes well, maybe it will be a template to do more of those in the future. That would be awesome. Okay, so that's all I have today. Let's see, how long did this one go? Just long, right? All right, guys, have a good one.